Oops, I've got to turn it off. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday, Video Friday. This is L&D Talk. My name is Brent Schlenker, Chief Learning Officer for Litmus.com. And today we're talking software.
Learning and development talk. Learning and development talk. L&D talk. L&D talk. L&D talk.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Here's we go. Well done. Musical stylings of Sam Rogers, ladies and gentlemen, my co-host for Video Friday. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Nice to hit some high notes early this morning.
I was going to say that. Did you do your morning vocal check?
No, that was it.
Hope you didn't pull any muscles or anything, but it sounded awesome.
Nah, hike up the shorts.
Pro, so you're totally legit. So we're talking software today, and we've got a very, very lively crowd this morning in the live chat. Everybody's hanging out. Good group of folks. Thanks for joining, everybody. It's always more fun to have a mix of thoughts in on the conversation. And we are also representing from around the globe. I'd just like to point that out. We have Khan from Australia joining us. It's 1 a.m. there, so we got to give him some major props for today. Lisa and Marco from the UK. Give the UK and then, of course, we have a bunch of Canadians, but they don't deserve an applause.
Go Commonwealth.
Go Commonwealth. All right, so software. We've been doing this Video Friday thing for I don't know, a few weeks now, maybe a few months, but just finally, starting to get it together a little bit. And we haven't really talked much about the software side of things. We've done some hardware conversations. We talked about lighting. We've talked about my mobile rig hardware setups, but we have not touched on software. And somebody brought it up last week, and so I thought, absolutely, what a great topic for today. So we'll leave this wide open for folks to ask questions, but whether you want to talk mobile editing, video capturing software, or desktop software, it's wide open. And maybe I can just start with asking everybody in the live chat, what's your favorite, or what do you use, whether it's your favorite or not? Why don't you just toss it in there and we can get the conversation going? How's that sound, Sam?
Sounds great. Yes. Any questions are welcome, and certainly favorite tool is a great question to ask. You've asked that for other learning and development talks, like for creating e-learning. What's your favorite tool? But specifically for video production, for video e-learning, any favorite tools would be great to talk about.
Yeah, so the first one popping in there, Craig mentions Premiere. All you Windows users, Adobe Premiere. I think there's a Mac version for it now too, but
yeah, Premiere is a great one to start talking about. Thank you. If I was going to go into a career of editing, if I wanted to build a skill set that would be useful not just in e-learning video, but video in general, Premiere is definitely what I would tell people, because it is cross-platform, meaning Mac, PC, it's a little different, but it's essentially the same program. It's a very easy entry because it's price-wise, you can do it on a subscription basis, their whole cloud model. It costs a bit of money over time, but if you don't like it, you can ditch it and find something else without being really invested in it. The concepts are of nonlinear video editing, which is pretty much the only kind there is these days, take a little getting used to. And if you've done any audio editing or things like that, it comes in really handy. Anything where even like in Captivate or whatever, where you're layering and moving, audio and video around, and it's the same kinds of ideas. It's just a little more complicated. But the best thing about Premiere is being able to work in a distributed team. So you can have someone working on motion graphics at the same time someone else is editing a sequence, that all of that stuff that's going together. So there's other kind of rapid development tools that you might be able to just use yourself a little faster. But if you wanted to be like the most portable in terms of skill sets, that's like high end. People make movies in Premiere. And there is also like a kind of light version. It's called Premiere Elements, that if you're intimidated by the software, it's like the iMovie version kind of, that you can get pretty cheap. So that's, thank you, Contrast Band. That's a good one to start with, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I do think Premiere now supports 360-degree video editing. And it does the stitching too, I think.
I don't know if it does that yet. There's starting to be support for that. I have messed around a little bit with that, just enough to know that I really don't want to mess around with it. There's a really good article or video series blog post from Wistia, who has a lot of great advice all the time. Wistia is awesome.
Do. Yeah.
Did they just announce support for 360? They've had a couple posts about doing it like the manual way of all the stitching. And basically what 360 video is doing is it's seeing everything in all directions, but you're doing that with several different cameras generally. I mean, even the ones that are 360-degree cameras, it still, you have to have like a lens somewhere. Yeah, so
lenses pointing different directions. Yeah.
Yeah. So even if you put like two fisheye lenses next to each other, there's still the bit in between, and there's still the stand that it's standing on, or that it's hanging from, or whatever. So trying to put all that together is something that happens in post-production. As far as e-learning is concerned, 360 is definitely a hip and trendy, cool thing to kind of do. But until we get to the place where we're integrating that with VR, AR kind of stuff, it's probably not going to have a lot of learning value. That's just my take on it. I'm happy to hear people in the chat who disagree, or Brent, if you have any other thoughts on 360.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too, and I'm not exactly sure. New tech comes along, and we all get really excited about it, but how are we going to use it? I think it's still up in the air. I don't like to pass judgment on any new tech just yet, because somebody somewhere finding a really cool way to use it for educational stuff all the time. So, it'll get there. It's new. And I think people are, once we're able to add interactive elements over the top of that 360 video, that might change the game a little bit too. So not only could you be, watching that 360 video either in your Google Cardboard or whatever, but if you could also connect it to interactive gloves and be able to touch things in those spaces while you're in that environment, that would change the game a little bit too. But we'll save that for another like Tech Tuesday or another day like that. That's way beyond, I think, where we need to go today. You've got some great slides that you were going to share with us and talk through. Did you want to do that, or?
Sure. And while I'm doing that, would you mind reviewing through the chat and throwing out a couple other favorites that people are mentioning?
Absolutely. First of all, I'd like to just point out too that I'm glad somebody brought up Wistia, because they do have a very cool service, and they also they have great resources for how to do inexpensive, very quick video stuff. So they're a great resource for e-learning for sure. TechSmith is also fantabulous. Great tools for the screen capturing stuff, all of that. I love them all. Sadly, I don't use them as much as I'd like to. I keep telling myself I'm going to do more video stuff with them, but still need to do that. Still need to figure that out. So, yeah. So let's see. So AJ jumped in. Good to see you. Ajay. Yeah. How you doing? What's the software for the fastest development? Shoot on your phone, edit, and post to YouTube within an hour. Oh, that's an outstanding question, Adam. I think there's probably multiple different ways you can do that. Hold on one second. I need to shut my door real quick.
Dang dog. As far as being able to shoot it on your phone, shoot video, and do it directly from your phone, I don't know what the best software is, but I have used the YouTube app to do that.
Yeah,
And they're always making updates to the app. So that was a few months back. So I don't know if, they've completely changed the platform. But I was doing that on an iPad to be able to shoot, trim, and post content from the YouTube app directly up to YouTube. And it worked. It worked fine. I did have it crash once while I was doing that, but that's because I was trying to do stuff that was probably just like a little too experimental for it. And my iPad was having other issues at the time. So I don't know if it was the app or the iOS, but
yeah, I think it depends on what type of system you're on, right? I mean, it's obviously going to be very different between if you're on the iOS or if you're on Android.
Android. Yeah, I have downloaded that same app on the Android.
Cool.
Haven't used it yet, but
yeah.
But that's a great question, and we can maybe have a whole episode in the future about mobile apps specifically. Give me a little time to research that or bring in a special guest.
We could do some live stuff too. I brought up in a separate chat, so I'll just throw this out kind of as an aside because I like to have tangents every now and then. Adam's question kind of reminded me of an idea I had. So he said, "What is the software for the fastest development? Shoot on your phone, edit, and post to YouTube within an hour." Wouldn't it be fun if one of our episodes was a challenge where we had some sort of topic and everybody had the blab hour to record something about that topic, edit it, and get it posted? And then we could have prizes or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And it doesn't have to be an hour. Like, a lot of people have the impression that video editing takes a while, and it does if you're not doing it well. But if you edit from the camera, if you're like not shooting stuff that you're not going to use, and you're taking a clip here and a clip here, 1, 2, 3, that's my clip, and not giving yourself like multiple iterations and takes, delete as you go, you give yourself less work. There's not as much to edit. It goes way faster. And also I'll detail in if I can get to the slides and stuff here, a methodology that works really well to do more of the run and gun, like rapid development kind of stuff.
Yeah, let me just so what you're talking about, you used a phrase there that probably might be new to a lot of folks, but back in the day before digital and all of that, editing in camera meant exactly what he was saying, that you, as a cameraman, you understand enough about editing and you understand enough about what the producer wants and how the script goes. And you're able to not only shoot the scenes that they need, but you're able to shoot them in exactly the length that they need or close and in the order that they need. So then you get all of those videos on the tape at the time, but now it's digital. When they're uploaded, they're already in the right order, or when you put them in, you now have minimal work at best on the editing side, and you can publish it. And the only way you get good at that is just doing it, right? The only way you get good at being an in-camera editor is by being a good editor ahead of time. So learning both skills is good. And I think it's something we should all do as part of, what do they call it? Sharpening the axe, so to speak. The more you do it, the more you practice, the better you get. Heck, we're learning people. We know this. So
There is a book too, and an audiobook that I would love to recommend that is a great practice guide, a lot of activities to go through that are really simple and easy. I'm not sure if you've mentioned it before on the Blab, Brent, but Steve Stockman's book, How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck, is really,
awesome.
really good.
Yeah, if
And
somebody could find that link on Amazon or something real quick and pop it into the chat, that would be awesome.
yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Audible. I found out about it first through the audiobook because, like, podcasts I have time for, while I'm traveling place to place. But the book itself is good too.
It's a visual topic, though. So tell me a little bit more about the audiobook. How do you learn about shooting video and editing video that doesn't suck in audio only version?
Yeah, because it's so well written and because it's so pragmatic in like how it's laid out and the kinds of experiments. He does make reference to his website. If you'd like to see an example, go to blah, blah, blah.
Cool. Okay.
And I actually was just talking with Steve yesterday about making a video course and like what that would involve and stuff like that. The first time I met him, though, I've been a big fan of his book for a long time and recommended it to a bunch of people. It's laid out in a very iterative kind of way that is really good for doing exactly what the title says: shooting video that doesn't suck. So just like assembling the best practices of someone who's worked a lot in television, who's worked a lot in movies, not so much in the online realm. The slide that I have up here shows 4 stages of video production. Usually, traditionally, there's 3, which is pre-production, production or principal production, and post-production. And that's where like TV and movies and stuff stop because that's it. Then the canister of film goes to the movie house, or, hey, we're on television. But there's another element of it for e-learning video, which is the platform that it's on, the actual distribution, and how it is that we're putting that together is really something that we're often tasked with as developers of video these days, and certainly e-learning video. You'd mentioned overlays or things like that, but being able to like configure it properly in a learning management system and all that kind of stuff, it falls to us. So I've included that as a stage as well.
That's great. I think we often forget about that part of the puzzle. So speaking of your slide deck, let's why don't we just start going through that a little bit here and talking a little bit more about this stuff. This is great.
Sure, and I'm happy to go on any tangents as well. I can't see the chat while I'm doing this, so Brent, call it out if people are wanting to go other directions.
I certainly will, but you have the floor.
Okay, so pre-production is the stuff that you do before you're capturing everything, and the most important element here is having a good story. Any scripting, any planning, like with the editing to camera kind of thing, like I'm going to get this, I know I'm going to get this, and just like making a list on paper or something like that is great. Any outlining, and I have some softwares here, like when we were doing the YouTube certified thing, Lee Rodriguez, my partner, who I'd love to get on here someday, we've done a bunch of video stuff together, and it's always hilarious and fun. He just dictates stuff into his iPhone and then puts it in Scrivener or Workflowy or something like that. But that is like the most important stage, and nobody usually believes that until they make a bunch of mistakes. Just like to shout out to planning and pre-production. Generally, when I teach this stuff, I kind of teach it in reverse order, but conceptually it goes pre, and then the actual camera part. The most important thing about it, like do not pass go, do not continue, is making it clear and making it fun. If you don't have something that is clearly fun in the camera, it's not really worth going forward. it needs to be clear in the sense of, as it came up in several of the previous video blabs, about the audio, you know, or if it sounds too weird like this, no one's going to listen. And people will bail on bad audio, on something that's unclear very quickly. But if there's something that people can understand, and it sounds like someone is actually interested in the topic that they're talking about, as opposed to the Bueller, like no one is going to hang out. And so getting something that has some life in it and that is clear right up in the camera is your permission to move to where we want to get to, the post-production, which we'll talk about a bit more. And I'm throwing some softwares up there. I actually really like ScreenFlow. That's only available for the Mac, I believe. But as like a rapid development tool, it's really good. You could just hack stuff together really quick.
Yep.
And that's the editing part. A lot of people don't think of like all the screen capture tools and stuff as part of this stage, but it really is. If you want to, you know, get your Camtasia, you know, Captivate, whatever, of technology specifically, this is a capture stage for all that. And I have, you know, cameras up there as well. I do a lot with GoPros because they're so like indestructible and easy to mount and put anywhere. The GoPro software is not so great. I wouldn't really encourage it. They're trying to shift to become more of a software platform. We'll see if they are successful in that or not. But the hardware is awesome. And then the post-production, which is the editing stage, probably mostly what we wanted to talk about today. It's all about doing things in a right sequence so that you're not kind of cycling through things over and over again that aren't as efficient. So the sequence that I always go through is, first off, inventory. Like in the edit with the camera kind of thing, as Brent was talking about, like when it was film, you had to do it in sequence. You might not actually shoot everything in the right sequence, and it's not as important in these nonlinear days. But knowing that it's labeled in a way that you can find it, knowing that what you've captured is actually noted, like, oh, my subject has this great aside moment here, or he just cracks up laughing. Like, okay, tag that. What is it? Can I find it? And does it make sense in terms of when I shot it? Can I find it? And that's before you start laying anything in a timeline. Then the next stage that I always go to, which is kind of as a result of being an audio guy, but like I said, if you don't have clear and good audio and good story, you don't get to this stage. So creating what I call the Braille edition of something where you're basically editing it for how it sounds. You're not looking at the imagery at all. You're just going for something that has a nice flow. Because if you're talking like this and then you're talking like this, and then it's like jumping from place to place, people will tune out. And it's really hard to fix that. So going from the audio first will help craft all of the visuals. And people have a much higher tolerance for visuals that jump around a bunch. You know, you can do things that are out of time or whatever, but the audio really controls your sense of time. So once you get that, then you can move on to like the rough cut edit kind of thing, which is just slam some footage together and see if it kind of lines up with what's happening in the audio. Very rough cut, like not spending time on any of the magic kind of, you know, overlays of things or titles or whatever. Just slam some footage together and see if it works. And usually people will want to see what you're doing here. It's not a good idea to show them this because they will form opinions. The only people you might want to share it with for an e-learning audience are your actual target. That is if you've got not a subject matter expert, but you've got like a learner who is in your target demographic, if you can send them a rough cut of your video and they can tell you what it's about and why they watched it, then it's good. And then you can go on. If they can't, then that's a big clue that you don't have it yet, that adding more won't really add anything. It'll just create a little more confusion. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Brent.
let me jump in here really quick. We got a great question from Lisa asking about music. And so while you're kind of talking about that audio piece of it, maybe this is a good place to talk about that. And if not, if you're saving it, if you've got a special slide for later, we can hold off on the question. I just wanted to bring it up while it was hot on everybody's minds.
Yeah, that's true. Generally, I'm not dealing with anything to do with like background music or whatever at this stage. So the Braille edition, I might try out some music that sets a mood or something like that, but I'm not going to include it in my rough cut. It's something that's going to be added in the next stage, which is once you start actually crafting some transitions, making something that, gee, that looks party, something that's got a little bit of visual element more to it. I might introduce some music at this stage just to try it. And this is a good time if you wanted to, get that final round of approvals from SMEs or something like that, or maybe involve if marketing is getting sign off or legal's getting sign off or, all those other people. This is something that's fine to share if there's music in it that you have as a background, which is a delicate balance. This came up in the Blab last week. There's a fine line between music that's just in the background and music that's just in the foreground. And there's things that you can do to make it like less obtrusive, but it's all just playing with it. There's not really any rules of thumb that or like special behind the scenes tricks to share. It's really a subjective thing, and it depends on how well the audio works without the music first, which is why that Braille edition is really the dialogue part or any of the sound effects that you have and stuff like that, that are part of the core narrative are in that second part. And this is where it starts to get a little prettier. So if you had to
I think like anything else, as you get better at all of these different elements, right? As you practice each one of them, maybe individually, then you start to realize in your pre-production how, oh wait, down the road, I think the music is going to be really critical here. So you can start making those decisions early on, but until you just start playing with it and doing it, it's hard to really know. Right?
Yeah. And that's why when I'm teaching this, I usually actually teach it in reverse order, which is I start with uploading something and then we look at post-production and then we look at principal production, as an activity, because then you know what you need by the time you get to pre-production.
Oh, very, very clever. I like that.
But also to the music question, like if you're uploading something to YouTube, there's a whole library of free music that is built into YouTube that you can put behind your video. And if you're making the choice to do that, like all of their free music wouldn't come in at this stage. It would, maybe you'd try some things out, but it would come in the next stage, which is the platform stage.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
But there's one more.
Okay, go ahead.
One more thing, which is like of the sequence.
Sure.
Finally, the magic of modern technology, like any kind of motion graphics or which means how things like fly in and do all the fancy stuff and, lens flares that you're adding after or any kind of filters to do with coloring or anything like that. Like that's only once everybody who needs to has signed off on the content. Only once you have something that is working for your learner. Only once it's basically done do you do the finesse. And go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, one of the things I learned in my early days of production was use transitions very, very minimally those advanced transitions. And if you are, there needs to be a purpose. And so the cut is your friend. And it seems kind of odd because to a lot of people, when they're first time doing it, a cut seems kind of harsh.
Yeah.
And they'd much rather do a slow fade or a spinning thingy because, ooh, that looks so cool. But
Right.
just like in your PowerPoint presentations, it can become distracting. So go easy on the transitions, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true. And if you do it in this sequence, you'll notice that you already have what you need, basically, to meet your learning objectives by step 3. So you can just keep iterating all this stuff. And if you're adding a transition that suddenly people are like distracted and knocked out of the video, in any approvals or anybody that you're just having like watch the thing, you can notice that and you can take that back out. The purpose is to add things that are conducive to learning, with each of these stages. And if you're doing anything that is just for the entertainment value or that takes people out of the experience, then it's not really helping people learn stuff, right? They have to watch it. My favorite tool, which is just my go-to because I know how to use it well, is Final Cut Pro 10. And as rapid development goes, there's even professional places that will use Final Cut to like make a rough cut and then go into Premiere and craft what the final footage is going to look like. So that's something that I jumped to quickly. But
I didn't know that was part of the process. I always thought Final Cut people were Final Cut people and Premiere people were Premiere people. And I never really thought of it as there being one good for one thing and then the other good for another and mixing and matching.
Yeah, it's not something that happens everywhere. But like if you're wanting to look at the dailies or something, making a movie, oftentimes they'll craft that, just hack it together in Final Cut. At the same time, they're assembling all the footage and working on things in Premiere, so that the director or any other key stakeholders can kind of see that they got what they needed and that this is going to work without getting into the complexity of the other tools, so they can kind of work more than one stream at a time. It's a matter of what you need. If you only need something very simple and very quick, like ScreenFlow, I would go to just as easily if I didn't have a lot of live action kind of footage or something like that. I'd probably just stay in Captivate or Camtasia or something like that. It depends on what your goal is.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools that you can jump into. You can even jump into QuickTime and do some very minor editing and slicing and dicing your content in QuickTime as well.
Yeah, you can. You mentioned edits and like jumping from one thing to another. Remember that the production threshold that bar has really been lowered by everyone having access to online video, by being able to put stuff up on YouTube, and like we can watch the shaky cam thing, and you'll even see stuff like that on television, and not just on America's Funniest Home Videos. Like, it's a style, and we can accept that visually now. So making something that's all perfectly transitioned isn't really necessary, and it's part of the vernacular of modern online video editing that there are jump cuts, and that's what helps tighten it up. And by jump, I mean like you take somebody just finishing a word and in this position, and then they're suddenly in this position and saying a totally different word. Like there's not a finely crafted transition there. It didn't flow. It was kind of these little chunks that are just hashed together. It's a pacing. It's a style. It may or may not be appropriate for your audience, and it's great to test that out. But don't feel like it has to look like something that came from a movie.
It's funny. I just edited something like that, and you're right. That type of jump cut is now a style, and I think it's been made sort of popular with YouTubers YouTubers have gotten really good at cutting out all of the dead air, and which makes it look really jumpy between their sentences. But it also keeps the content going fast, and it is kind of style-esque to it. And I've seen a lot of YouTubers do it, and I kind of like it. So I shot some video yesterday and tried to do it myself, and I quickly realized that there is definitely a skill involved, and it takes some practice. I liked what I ended up with. I think it'll be out soon. But yeah, it's, breaking, you got to know the rules first before you can break the rules, right? I guess is how they always,
Yeah. Well, knowing what you're going for, at the very least, like I want to do a video that looks like this. Well, okay. Pay attention. Like, what is this? Like, is there an edit every 3 seconds? Is it really choppy and fast paced and tight? Like, the reason that people are doing that on YouTube is because it keeps people watching. If it didn't work, people wouldn't do it.
Right.
And again, test it with learners and see what is actually going to work for them, what they'll actually be attracted to and want to watch. You might be doing something different in a new employee orientation that's geared towards, younger generation or something like that than someone who's coming in as a new manager or something like that. Last stage I want to get to here is that platform production part. And here the key is usability. And just like we were just saying, like, what is it that the learner wants to get? What is it that's usable for them? When we were doing YouTube Certified, ironically, we didn't end up putting our videos on YouTube. Like, I tried to make it work. I tried all the different overlays and everything, but their platform really wasn't set up to be able to deliver training very well, because there was no being able to do prerequisites, and there were issues with it. The platform itself being different in different countries.
Let's, stop. I'm going to hold you off right there, because I want people to know. I don't think a lot of people here know that the work that you did at Google for YouTube. So give us a quick, what's the 30-second project that you did? Because it's cool.
Sure. Let me get my mouse back, and you don't need to see that I have appointments coming up. I guess I got to go out to go back in. The YouTube Certified program was a live instructor-led 2-day training that YouTube had for all of its top tier partners. So like people who manage massive sets of content, like Sony Pictures kind of like level of movie houses, audio distribution companies or record labels, National Geographic, like those kind of people that have these really big sets of data that like National Geographic wants to know when there's a cheetah that's theirs that's being used in someone's little YouTube video and make a decision about that and kind of pre-filter all of that stuff and say, oh, well, it's okay because you're in an academic institution, or it's okay if you're in this country, or it's okay if you pay us, and making those kinds of decisions. Those are some of the things that involve a back-end tool set that as an everyday YouTube user, we wouldn't see. So they had this program for their partners that have all this stuff, just basically teaching them how to use the tools. And they wanted to scale it up to be able to deliver it online. So my buddy Lee and I were brought in as consultants and contractors to come in to make that happen for them. And it was kind of funny because we got to YouTube and we were like, hey, okay, cool, we're going to do this. So what have you got? There were no scripts for anything. So where's the camera? It's like, camera? We don't have cameras. It's like going to like a record label or something and saying, okay, where's your guitar? Like, they don't have guitars. They're just the distribution network. So it was really a big ground up effort. And we ended up turning it into like, I don't know, what was it, like 6 or 8 hours of video online training. And I was directing and producing most of that and set the tone for the editing and all that kind of thing, along with Lee, who did a lot of the post-production kind of team management and all that. And we delivered it on Litmus, is what we ended up using for our learning management system, and uploading videos through that so that we could manage all the stuff that we couldn't manage on YouTube, to restrict access and make sure that it was really only partners that were getting this information and not just everybody on YouTube. And basically in 8 weeks, we made 90 videos and 8 hours worth of content, and it was really, really crazy, and I didn't sleep much, but it worked really well. And it's set the standard for a lot of the stuff that they've been doing since. So I never did say that. And I know that we're actually coming up on time.
Just wrap it up real quick on that last platform part. Unless you're already done.
No, I'm just waiting for the slides to catch up. That's okay. You already saw it. So the platform part is, what is that last step? And we didn't know in that YouTube experience what we were going to be using as the last step. What is the platform? We assumed it was going to be YouTube, and we only found out after we shot everything that it really wasn't going to work, and that we had to go through a learning management system for video hosting as well, that we couldn't do the overlays that we had actually recorded people pointing to when we recorded it. And we had to change everything up. Knowing what it is that people are going to be able to use, knowing what it is that they're going to be able to do on the platform that they're watching it, is critical to what you shoot in the first place, to how you script in the first place, and to what you edit where. Like I mentioned, the audio part. Knowing that you're going to have some background audio that comes in at the end means that you shouldn't put it in the video, you know? Yeah. Because you don't, the way that their licensing works, it's licensed fine as long as it's on their platform, but you can't like download it and embed it in your video and then upload it to Vimeo or, you know, some other platform. Like, that's not part of the license. It has to be through their platform. So knowing what your end destination is, what your user is actually going to use, is the final piece that in e-learning video development is so critical.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, it's common across the board, though, even in just regular video for marketing, regular video for, you know, for anything, any project that you're doing, really, it's always that applies, I think. You know, keep the end in mind, and you know who your customer is going to be, know who your audience is. It applies in so many different ways across the board. So that was awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your process. I know people go to your workshops and everything to learn all that cool stuff. So I appreciate you sharing here.
Yeah, and hopefully we touched on enough about software as well, the differences between the different kinds of software. Again, starting with the end in mind, if I'm going to do something that's really screen capture heavy, I'm not going to probably put that in Premiere, you know? What tool you use is dependent on how people are going to use it when it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe what we can do, this was sort of a good start at software, right? And the process, I think it's good. Maybe next week or one of the other Fridays coming up, we can focus specifically on one or the other, mobile or whatever. Or maybe we can even focus it down to just one of those tools on one of these video Fridays, and just take a look at one and sort of break it down and talk about what it might be good for, you know, what that tool versus another. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
We're always open to suggestions from the live chat. So appreciate everybody being here today. We're at that 9 o'clock hour, and I try really hard to be respectful of everybody's time, but every once in a while when we're cooking, we go over. So my apologies, but I appreciate everybody hanging out. This was a load of fun. Sam, thanks so much for being our co-host again today.
Yeah, co-host and getting to present a little bit here too, and I'll take you out with a little learning and development talk. L&D talk, L&D talk. You still recording?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. We will see you on Monday morning for L&D Talk. It's going to be Media Monday. Have a great weekend.
All right.